In the ancient kingdom of the mind, a weary traveler once sought audience with a sage, asking to be relieved of the heavy burden of his constant thinking and the noise of his own identity. The sage looked at him, with eyes like deep pools of stillness, and handed him a scroll containing the ancient wisdom titled The Enigma of the Silent Observer. Who is Seeing Your Thoughts? By Robert Adams. This text was not merely a collection of words, but a map leading back to the source of the self, challenging the traveler to stop identifying with the weary legs that walked and the thirsty throat that spoke. The traveler realized that he had spent his entire life mistaking the clouds for the sky, never once pausing to ask who was watching the clouds pass, or if the sky was ever truly touched by the storm. He began to understand that the one who sees the movement of the mind is not the mind itself, but a silent presence that stands apart, untouched by the drama of the narrative. Consider the parable of the king who dreamt he was a beggar, starving and cold in the streets of his own capital, crying out for a single crust of bread to save his life. In the dream, his suffering was absolute, his hunger gnawed at his belly, and the scorn of the passers-by felt sharper than any blade. Yet all the while, his physical body lay safe in the palace. The moment he awoke, the beggar vanished instantly, not because the beggar went somewhere else, but because the beggar never truly existed outside of the king's own consciousness. The silent observer is like the waking king, watching the dream of your life unfold with total detachment, knowing that the joys and sorrows of the character you play are merely shadows dancing on a wall. When you ask who is seeing your thoughts, you are beginning to wake up from the dream of personhood, realizing that the I who suffers is just another character in the play. There was once a man who sat in a darkened room, weeping because he could not find his way out, believing he was trapped forever in an impenetrable void of despair. He did not realize that he was holding a lantern in his hand the entire time. But because he was looking outward for a door, he never looked down to see the light he already possessed. The thoughts that crowded his mind were like the darkness, obscuring the truth. Yet the very fact that he was aware of the darkness proved the presence of a light that allowed him to see it. The silent observer is that inner lantern, the light of pure awareness that illuminates every thought, every fear, and every desire without ever becoming the things it illuminates. You are not the darkness of the room, nor are you the frantic search for the door. You are the light that makes the search possible. Imagine a great cinema screen that remains pure and white, regardless of the movie that is projected upon it, whether it be a tragedy of war or a comedy of errors. The fire in the movie does not burn the screen, the water in the movie does not make it wet, and the characters in the movie do not leave a single scratch upon its surface. Most of humanity lives lost in the movie, crying when the hero dies and laughing when the villain falls, completely forgetting the screen that supports the entire illusion. To find the silent observer, you must shift your attention from the moving pictures back to the screen itself, resting in the background that allows the foreground to exist. The thoughts you claim as yours are merely flickering images of light and shadow. But the you that watches them is the screen, eternal and unaffected by the script. A thief once dressed himself in the robes of a holy man to hide from the guards. And in doing so, he began to receive the reverence and offerings of the villagers who believed his disguise. Over time, the thief began to believe he was the holy man, forgetting his true nature and becoming lost in the role he had created to survive. The ego is like this thief, dressing itself in the experiences and memories of the body, claiming to be the master of the house when it is merely an imposter hiding in the robes of consciousness. The silent observer is the true master of the house who returns to find the imposter sitting on his throne, and with a single look of recognition, the disguise falls away. You must inquire deeply into who is wearing the robes of your identity, for the one who watches the thief cannot be the thief himself. The process of self-inquiry is akin to a dog that chases a stone thrown by a boy. The dog runs after the object, obsessed with the projectile, ignoring the source of the throw. A lion, however, does not look at the stone. The lion looks back at the thrower, tracing the action to its origin, and in doing so, The lion confronts the true cause rather than the effect. Most people are like the dog, chasing every thought that is thrown across the landscape of their mind, running endlessly in circles of anxiety and anticipation. To be the silent observer, you must become the lion, turning your gaze away from the thought and back toward the source from which the thought arises. When you look for the thrower, when you look for the thinker, you find only a vast, silent emptiness where the observer resides. Before we continue, I'd love to connect with you for a moment. Comment below with your name and the city you're watching from right now. Tell me what challenge or inner struggle you're currently going through. And write this phrase in the comments: I'm waking up to who I really am. It's incredible to see how many different places this community is watching from. And if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. There is a legend of a musk deer that wandered the Himalayas, frantic and exhausted, searching for the source of a divine fragrance that captivated its senses. It ran over jagged peaks and through deep valleys, tearing its skin on thorns, driven by a desperate need to find the origin of the scent. The deer did not know that the musk was contained within its own navel, and that the more it ran, the more the scent eluded it, for the search itself was a distraction from the truth. We are like that musk deer, searching the world for peace and happiness, thinking that satisfaction lies in the next achievement or the next thought. The silent observer is the realization that what you are seeking is already within you, closer than your own breath, waiting for you to stop running. Think of the ocean and its waves. A wave may believe it is separate, with a beginning and an end, rising high with pride or crashing down in fear of dissolution. It looks at the other waves and compares itself, feeling small or large, powerful or weak, completely forgetting that it is made entirely of water. The moment the wave realizes it is water, the fear of death vanishes. For water cannot die. It only changes form, merging back into the vastness from which it came. The silent observer is the water witnessing the wave. It is the underlying substance of existence that remains constant while the forms of life rise and fall. When you identify as the observer, you stop being the temporary wave and become the eternal ocean, watching the movements of the surface without fear. A group of 10 men once crossed a dangerous river, and upon reaching the other side, the leader counted the group to ensure everyone had survived the crossing safely. He counted 9 men, wailing in grief that one had drowned, for in his panic, he had forgotten to count himself as the 10th man. A wise passerby saw the commotion, understood the error, and slapped the leader on the back, saying, "Here is the 10th man," instantly ending the sorrow. We are always counting the objects of the world: my house, my job, my body, my thoughts, forgetting the subject, the I, that perceives them all.
For most of your life, you believed you were your thoughts. You believed the mind had to be fixed, silenced, controlled. But no one ever told you this. The mind was never the problem. The real trap is believing you are it. There is something in you that watches fear, that watches pain, that watches every thought arise and disappear. That observer has never suffered. It was never born, and it will never die. When this is seen, effort disappears. The spiritual search ends, because the one who was searching was never real. This is not a teaching to believe in. It is a direct experience, simple and deeply liberating. The book, The Awakening of the Observer, does not teach techniques. It points to the exact place where the ego dissolves. Each page is a mirror, and what is seen there cannot be unseen. If something in you recognizes these words, the call has already begun. Click the link in the comments and get your copy of The Awakening of the Observer now.
The silent observer is the 10th man, the one who is always present but perpetually overlooked in the frantic accounting of external things. In the twilight, a man sees a coiled rope on the path and mistakes it for a poisonous snake, his heart racing with terror as he recoils in fear of a bite. He sweats and trembles, planning how to kill the snake or how to flee, his entire reality shaped by a misunderstanding of what lies before him. When a friend shines a light on the object, the snake vanishes instantly, not because it ran away, but because it never existed. There was only ever a rope. The mind creates the snake of the ego and the world of suffering, constructing elaborate fears based on illusions that have no substance in reality. The silent observer is the light that reveals the rope, showing that the monsters of the mind are merely harmless projections of your own ignorance. A painter stood before a blank canvas and painted a terrifying demon, so lifelike and fierce that upon finishing it, he became afraid of his own creation. He forgot that the demon was made of paint and canvas, born of his own hand, and instead gave it power over his emotions and his peace of mind. We paint the story of our lives with the brush of our thoughts, creating scenarios of doom and gloom, and then we cringe before them as if they were independent realities. The silent observer knows that the painter is distinct from the painting, and that no matter how scary the image, it cannot harm the creator. To rest in the observer is to put down the brush and step back, seeing the artwork for what it is, a temporary expression, not a defining truth. There is a space between two thoughts, a tiny gap of silence that exists before one thought ends and the next one begins, like the pause between breaths. Most people bridge this gap instantly with noise, rushing from one concept to another like a man stepping on stones to cross a river, afraid to fall into the water. Yet, it is in that water, in that gap of silence, that the true self resides, waiting to be noticed in the stillness that underpins the noise. The silent observer is not found in the stream of thinking, but in the background of silence that allows the thinking to be heard. By expanding that gap, by resting in the pause, you move from being the thinker to being the witnessing presence that holds the entire universe. A salt doll once journeyed for thousands of miles to behold the great ocean, asking the waves, "Who are you?" and receiving the reply, "Touch me and see." As the doll stepped into the water to understand the nature of the ocean, its feet began to dissolve, then its legs, until the doll exclaimed, "It is I," just before disappearing completely. The observer is like the salt doll. It exists only as long as it feels separate from the truth it is observing, maintaining a distance to keep its identity. But the ultimate destiny of the silent observer is to merge with the silence itself, dissolving the distinction between the seer and the seen. In the final realization, there is no longer one who watches and one who is watched. There is only the vast, shimmering ocean of consciousness. Consider the clay pot that holds the space inside it. The space within the pot is no different from the infinite space outside the pot, separated only by a fragile wall of clay. When the pot breaks, the space inside does not go anywhere. It simply merges with the space outside, revealing that they were never truly two different things. The body and the mind are like the clay pot, creating an illusion of a separate me that holds a private consciousness distinct from the rest of the world. The silent observer realizes that the wall of the ego is brittle and imaginary, and that the awareness looking out through your eyes is the same awareness looking out through all eyes. Breaking the pot is not a destruction of the self, but a liberation of the confined space into the infinite. A man dreamt he was fleeing from a tiger in a dense jungle, running until his lungs burned and his legs gave out, the hot breath of the beast on his neck. Just as the tiger pounced, the man woke up in his bed, heart pounding, only to realize there was no tiger, no jungle, and no running. The waking state is often just another layer of the dream, where we run from the tigers of poverty, loneliness, and death, believing them to be absolute realities. The silent observer is the state of lucidity, the part of you that begins to suspect you are dreaming, even while the dream continues. When you fully awaken, the observer merges into the dreamer, and you realize that the tiger and the man were both made of you. The lotus flower grows in the muddy water, surrounded by dirt and slime, yet its petals remain pristine and untouched, never wetted by the water or sullied by the mud. It lives in the environment but is not of it, drawing nourishment from the muck while rising above it to bloom in the sun. The realized being lives in the world of thoughts and actions, performing duties and interacting with others, yet remains inwardly established as the silent observer, untouched by the chaos. You can walk through the marketplace of the world, hearing the noise and seeing the colors, without ever losing the stillness of your true nature. This is the art of living as the witness, to be fully present in the movie, yet knowing you are the screen. There was a gold chain that lay in a jewelry box, and one day it began to pray to the goldsmith, asking to be made into a beautiful ring, forgetting its fundamental nature as gold. It believed that its value lay in its form, in being a chain or a ring, not realizing that the form was temporary and the gold was permanent. We pray to change our circumstances, to fix our thoughts, to improve our sawi, self, forgetting that the substance of our being is already the pure gold of consciousness. The silent observer does not care about the shape of the jewelry. It knows that whether you are a king or a beggar, the gold remains unchanged. The inquiry stops being about fixing the form and becomes a resting in the substance. Finally, imagine a mirror that reflects everything passing before it. A beautiful flower, a pile of garbage, a passing cloud, accepting all images without judgment or attachment. The mirror does not reject the garbage, nor does it cling to the flower. It simply reflects what is, remaining empty and clear the moment the object moves away. The mind of the sage is like this mirror, reflecting the world perfectly, but holding on to nothing, leaving no residue of memory or desire. To be the silent observer is to polish the mirror of your heart until it no longer distorts reality with your preferences and fears. In that clarity, the observer and the reflection vanish, and only the light remains. If this message resonated with you and brought clarity or peace to your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone in your life who might need this insight right now. Also, don't leave just yet. Make sure to watch the next video on the end screen, because it continues this conversation and can deepen your understanding even more. And if you want to go further on this path, you can explore the book, The Awakening of the Observer, where these ideas are explained much more deeply along with practical daily exercises. The link is in the pinned comment. If this video truly helped you in some way, you can also support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee, and your support will help make future videos possible. The link is also in the pinned comment.